My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. Is it possible to find meaningful relationships that span 5D and allow you to bring in the beloved? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, MaureenJStGermain, found her own beloved twin flame this way and shares her wisdom for all those seeking to do the same. Maureen has more than 25 years of experience in the area of mystical and sacred traditions. Known as the Practical Mystic, Maureen is a prolific teacher and facilitator of spiritual knowledge for contemporary life, having taught in 24 countries, including at Kripalu and Omega Institute. Her books have been translated into 12 languages, and she's appeared on national TV and hundreds of radio shows. Founder of St. Germain Mystery School and the Akashic Records Guides Incorporated, she also runs a sought-after annual program, the Ascension Institute. Her website is stgermainmysteryschool.com, and she joins me this week to share her path, wisdom, and suggestions to bring in the beloved. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, MaureenJStGermain. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Thank you for that nice introduction.
Maureen, we've been in touch with each other since I first met you years ago during I was emceeing an event, and you were one of the speakers, and I had the pleasure of introducing you, and we had talked about getting together, and we're finally getting together to do this, so thank you.
My pleasure. And, you know, I really think a lot of you, and there's some lovely connection because I remembered our very first conversation. So that's why I said to you when I saw you a couple of weeks ago, I remember blah, blah, blah.
I believe in soul family, and I have a feeling we've walked together before.
Indeed.
Absolutely. So please share with us your early path and how and when you discovered your mystical gifts.
Well, I think I was born awake. And I came from a very large family. My mother was also very plugged in, clairvoyant. And my father was too. And they actually attended workshops where they learned how to read the body and the Jose Silva method. But they learned it directly from Jose Silva, which is quite amazing. And I remember my dad saying to me, and they went to this course, I think probably after I was already married, but my dad said he never wanted to do it after that because one of the practice ladies had cancer and he did not want to be the one to tell her. So my early life, I read Casey when I was a teenager. And so I pursued esoteric studies from the time I was really, an adult. And my gifts came in. I knew, for example, when I was a child that I was being watched by beings, I'll call them in the sky. And I knew some of them were benevolent and I knew some of them were not benevolent. But I wasn't afraid. I just knew that, they had other agendas besides the agenda I was on. And then I studied with a lot of different spiritual schools. And as I, developed my understanding of spiritual things, then I started bringing in direct knowledge. And I work with this group of beings called the Council of Nine. And I was afraid to tell people because I had never heard of the Council of Nine, except in my head. And I didn't know there was such a group. Since that time, I have discovered there are very few other people who are bringing forward their information, but our knowledge base seems to be very aligned. So I know that we are bringing forward the same group. I also learned how to open the Akashic Records and then again, guidance was very clear that I needed to start teaching it, which I did. And that program took off. I also learned how to do the guided meditation known as the maraba, which activates an energetic field around your body. And once again, I was called to teach it. And I remember Drumvalo asking all of us to state what we were going to do. And I remember saying I would teach millions of students. And I believe I have, because I've been all over the world teaching, and the knowledge base has grown. Plus now there's a video program that people can watch and also learn that method. So in a way, I was simply uncovering, and we all are really uncovering our gifts. But I always felt like I was on a mission from the time I was able to think for myself.
And you had the blessing of parents who understood this, and I believe they also encouraged you. But there are many who manifest these things as children, as I did, and was told not to imagine things, or that I had an overactive imagination. What would you say to children, to parents of children who are manifesting these gifts?
Well, I would say a couple of things. Number one, I want everyone to know that there are a lot of ascended masters who have chosen to embody at this time. So the most important thing to know is there will not be another war. There will not be a devolution of who we are as a species, because these beings would not have come in to throw away all their light on a failed mission, so to speak. So, it's a fait accompli that we're going to succeed. To the parents, I would say you must learn how to connect with your higher self, because you cannot parent your children the way you were parented, or the way other of your children may have been parented. What worked for one may not work for another. And the only way to know what the highest and best choice is to have that connection going. Because those parents are going to be challenged. The way you know if you have an ascended master son or daughter is, are they fearless? Do they do things that are on the edge of safety? And you say to yourself, what is driving this? And the answer is, they're like Superman testing their skills. And they may not even realize that's what they're doing, but that's what's going on.
Absolutely.
So the parents, the first thing a parent needs to do is not to just draw the line and say, you may not do that or you cannot do that, but instead explain to this child, this gifted child, your actions are affecting other people, and this is what can happen. And then they will own it, because they're here to help save the planet. So they're not concerned about their own actions unless they affect other people adversely. So that's how you get their cooperation.
Absolutely. You call yourself the practical mystic. What does that mean?
Well, I was called the practical mystic by a book written in Wisconsin called Famous Wisconsin Mystics. And then person that I knew in my environment referred to me as the practical mystic. And so I thought, I'm hearing this a couple of times. I think I should adopt it. And to me, it means that I'm not interested in esoteric knowledge for the sake of esoteric knowledge. I'm interested in how can we apply this to everyday life? How can I use this? I raised 4 sons. For a good portion of that time, I was a single parent. I wanted to know how I could use these skills to be a better parent, to be better at my work, at my job, at my corporate job, like that. And so that's why all the things I have often employ a logical base so that people can, segue from who they are today into this spiritual aspect, and then apply it so their life is better.
Absolutely. It's funny. I have a 44-plus year career in welding technology, in joining metals and construction and that type of thing. And a friend of mine who knew of my business acumen and also who knew about my other life, my spiritual life, many years ago, asked me, how do you explain the fact that you have this day job in technology and this other work that you do, being an ordained interfaith minister and the other work that I do? And without even thinking about it, I said, the day job pays my salary. I said, the other work pays my soulary. And I'm writing my first solo book called Soulary, The Compensation of Spirit. That's going to hopefully be out early next year. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's fabulous, just fabulous.
Thank
you.
And
it also tells people, you don't have to give up your day job. You do have to be willing to give up the TV shows that you've been watching. You do have to give up, the playtime that you might have spent, just doing stuff that passed time, and I'm not suggesting you give up your recreation completely, but there are sacrifices that you have made, that we all make when we're doing both the day job and the spiritual work. And that's totally part of our plan, our programming. It's not an accident. We're doing that on purpose.
Absolutely. We hear a lot about the word ascension. Many people use the word ascension. They're on a path of ascension. What does ascension mean to you?
I think it means that we have perfected the human body, mind, and soul, and that we're in a full agreement, so that the spirit that's connected to source knows why it's here and what it's doing. And then the emotions and the physical and the mental are aligned with that. And so it doesn't mean life is perfect. What it means is that we are moving into an expression that does not require polarity, does not require good and bad, and instead requires choice. And that is different.
And what are the symptoms of those who are ascending?
Oh my gosh. I think one of them is they need more sleep. Another.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Another of them is they intuitively know stuff, but they don't know how they know. Another example is when they misplace something. So you take your sunglasses off and put them away, and then you remember, oh, I have one more errand to do. So you go to the drawer where the sunglasses are and they're not there. And you think to yourself, yeah, but I just put it here. And so then you just grab a spare, take care of the errand, come back without realizing you're holding the spare. You go to put it away, and there are the sunglasses. And you think to yourself, how is this possible? 2 hours ago, I couldn't find them, and now they're right exactly where I thought they were. And the answer is, in 3D, we're in polarity. We're analyzing and reflecting on the differences of what we want and what we don't want, or what we think someone else should be doing or not doing. And in 5D, we're in a place of blissful allowing. And that blissful allowing creates a expression, like a fountain of unconditional love that gets spread around us and through us and overflows into the people we interact with. And so it's like when you fall in love, that is a 5D experience, because you could be driving your car and somebody, pulls in front of you, and you realize that they knew you were there and they just wanted that spot. And you think, well, they're in a hurry. They need to get where they're going. You're not even fazed by other people's inattentiveness or other people's misactions that could cause a problem for somebody.
Let's talk a little bit about these dimensions for those who've heard the terms and have some idea or not sure about it. Let's talk about 3D, 4D, and 5D. What do each one represent?
So 3D is this world of polarity that we have enjoyed. And we created this experience to expand the database. A lot of people don't realize that everything that we do, whether it is a good experience or bad experience, drives us to the next experience. So if we have been an alcoholic, for example, and then we decide to get clean, we are much more appreciative of everything around us than we were before we decided to change our lifestyle. So those experiences expand us, and they create opportunities for us to reach higher than we would have if we hadn't had that experience. So 3D is loaded with polarity, and sometimes we have experiences that are tragic or hard. And again, these are experiences that we have allowed in order to expand our overall experience. In 4D, we are transitioning. So 4D is like Grand Central Station. Nobody goes there to spend the night. You might end up spending the night in an airport or at Grand Central, but not on purpose. You would choose to have a bed. So it's a place of transition. It's a portal, if you will. And it is high emotion. So whenever we're in really intense emotion, we are in that fourth dimensional space. Now in 4D, there's still polarity. So we still experience good and evil, but it's more intense. So the highs are higher and the lows are lower, kind of like a person who has mania or who has bipolar. That high is really high and that low can be difficult or mean or painful. And those people who have like bipolar or some of those other kinds of mental disorders are often stuck in fourth dimension unwittingly. And so, we need to anchor ourselves back into 3D and then take that 4D ride to get to fifth dimension. So why do we go to the airport? To go somewhere else. Why do we go to Grand Central? To go somewhere else. And so fifth dimension is that new zone that has no polarity and it has no right or wrong. It doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen. What it means is that the choices that are offered to you through your own consciousness or through consciousness in general are all uplifting. Everything about 5D is uplifting rather than downturning. So, for example, if you go to your closet and you've put on weight, some of those things won't fit. So that would be like a 3D experience. But in 5D, everything in your closet, not only does it fit, but it looks good on you. And it doesn't mean you don't have choice. It means you have lots of choice, but that's all good choices. And I hesitate to use the word good because it isn't about polarity. And the word good does imply bad. So they're optimal choices. They're choices that are attractive and loving and uplifting.
And these sound like variations in frequency, 3D, then higher frequency, 4D, and the highest frequency, 5D. Is that a good analogy for that?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I often tell people it's a data set that we vibrate at. And so that's another thing that's a misnomer. A lot of people think that they're going to go to 5D. And when they've arrived, they're going to be in nirvana. And the truth is we're riding into 5D all the time. That moment when we find those sunglasses, we're in 5D. We wouldn't have seen them because we put them down when we were in 5D. You came in from your errands and you felt good. Everything was accomplished and you put your sunglasses away and you're in a joyful state. And the joyful state gets changed when you realize, oh my gosh, I forgot this one thing. And then you move back into polarity. I better hurry up before the dry cleaner closes or whatever it is. So we are on a sine wave, and the sine wave is at a 45-degree angle. So if you could draw a line through the sine wave, that straight line to the middle of the sine wave would be at a 45-degree angle. That angle is an upward angle, upward transformation. So the sine wave is not straight across like a horizon. It has a 45-degree elevation from the horizon, which means no matter how low you go, it's higher than you were yesterday. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How does this apply to humanity as a whole?
Well, lately, I've been telling people we're all going to be fifth dimensional, whether you're ready or not. And the joke is, there are people who I will call that are extras, and they're other versions of ourselves, or they're souls that came in just to hold space. And so, the idea that you can experience these things expands your awareness and makes it possible for the transformation of the reality. So everybody is being uplifted. Our conversation is going to uplift people, some people more than others. And then their next conversation is going to be uplifting to someone else. So it truly is a domino effect that we're all pulling each other up.
And as you mentioned earlier, children who are coming in, who are already lifting up, are going to be very important in this process.
They are very important to the process for two reasons. Number one, their light holds a tremendous balance on the planet. And number two, and the parents kind of have to get out of the way. And so, as a parent, you'll be asked to do things or to allow things that you wouldn't dream of allowing in a normal circumstance. But you allow it because your guidance is that it's going to be okay. And so you change your opinion about what's okay. And sometimes, and this is, from working with lots of parents, sometimes you don't change your opinion, but you allow anyway. And that's okay too, because in hindsight, you'll be okay. I think that, one other thing I want to add to this, and that is that there are three earths, and the three earths can be described in these simple terms: the crash and burn earth, the do-over earth, and the ascending earth. And what I mean by those terms, crash and burn, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. There are souls who absolutely cannot, will not accept their divinity, and therefore they are choosing to self-annihilate. Then the do-over earth are all those wonderful people who are very good people. They have high integrity, they're honest and sincere, but they're stuck in their belief system. And their belief system becomes their limiting impact, which prevents them from recognizing that they are really a very high being having a human experience, instead of insisting that the human experience is the only one there is, and that I got to follow this set of rules in order to be saved, or I've got to have this set of rules in order to be a good person.
Can you offer one piece of advice that listeners can do right now to embrace the 5D life?
Yes. Ask for a day of heaven on earth for yourself and everyone you come in contact with and everyone you are in contact with. And I'll explain more later when we come back.
Absolutely. My guest, MaureenJStGermain. Maureen, please tell our listeners where they can get your books, your website, and find out more about everything you have to offer.
Okay, so the website is called StGermainMysterySchool.com, and it's ST without a period, Germain, Germain, and then the word mystery, MYSTERY. School, SCHOOL.com. And if you just Google my name, Maureen St. Germain, that website will come up. Our books are available on Amazon and also at Inner Traditions, the publisher. We have a new app that came out in April that has about 70% of my guided meditations readily available, so you don't have to be on the internet. Once you download the app, it's free, and it does have a number of free guided meditations that allow a person to, have a way to do meditation. Most of us have monkey mind, and this kind of cuts that away. I think that's enough for now.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more of Maureen after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is MaureenJStGermain. Maureen, we're going to be talking about this wonderful class that I saw you offer at the New Life Expo recently called Bringing in the Beloved, but a couple of more questions about the work that you do. Many people have heard the word Akashic Records. What are the Akashic Records?
It's a body of knowledge that represents your past your present, and probable futures. So it's not a psychic kind of connection. It goes higher into information that we now use for soul growth.
And may anyone access the Akashic records, or do they need special training?
Anyone can access the Akashic records. And there are people who do access the records without special training. We do encourage people to get training. It's a little bit like driver's ed. Anybody can learn to drive a car without training, but the training really makes the difference. And in our program, we have a lot of special tools that no one else has.
Can you share some of that, please?
Sure. The first one we have, which is, I think, the most important, is the higher self connection. And the higher self connection allows us to get to a place of exact validation. So we have the ability to validate information. When you first open the records, or when you get unusual information, the human personality wants to look at that and say, I made that up. And of course, if your client says, how could you know that? You know, you didn't make it up. But, you know, in that in-between state, there are times that you want to trust it, but your personality is like, that can't possibly be. And I have a great story around that, but I'll finish with the first question you asked me, and you can circle back if you want. The other thing that we have is a thing we call markers. And markers allow the student to identify, I'm in the records. And my analogy for that is when you look at your phone, if you have 3 bars or 4 bars, you know you can make that important phone call. But if you're driving in the mountains or someplace where the coverage isn't good, you wait because you don't have a good connection. The markers let you know you're at that place of connection. We also have the essential oil blends called Aramandalas that were created to go with the Akashic records. And the very specific blend is called Akashic. And so that also increases the connection. And there's a lot of science behind that as well. And then we ask for beings of 100% God light. And a lot of the other lineages just don't do that. And so other beings can come in and have come in. Also, I've written the award-winning book called Opening the Akashic Records. And so that's another resource for people. And finally, we start with opening remarks. And what that means is, in my lineage, the students are taught to receive a download of information about the client that is a precursor or a prelude. And nobody has said anything. You don't know anything about the client except their name. And yet this download comes in and you give it, and it may be 20 seconds, it might be 10 minutes. It's rarely longer than that. And then the client can ask questions. But it's in that opening remarks segment that really validates for the client, yeah, she's definitely in my records. And for the guide who's bringing that information forward, when the client says, that is so accurate. You answered all my questions and I haven't even started yet. So those kinds of things occur. And that's another way we validate that we're definitely in a person's Akashic record.
Funny story. I had my records read many, many years ago. And the first question that was asked, you talk about the prelude, was, how am I known in the world? How do people know me? And I said, Vic Furman. She said, what was the name you were given when you were born? And I said, Victor Furman. And she said, why do you call yourself Vic? And I said, because Vic is what everyone has always called me and what I've been known as. She says, you must use your full name, Victor. And I said, why? She said, because without that end, you're cutting off your light. And I immediately recognized what she was talking about. In Hebrew, the word or means light. And she said, by using Vic and not Victor, I was cutting off my light. And from that point forward, I used my full name, Victor. I didn't care what everyone else called me, but I projected my energy as Victor because that was my light.
That's fabulous. And that's exactly what happened to my spouse when we had a similar conversation. And he used to have a shortened version of his name. And He just announced to everybody, from now on, I'm going as this name. And it was his full birth name.
Absolutely.
So
You've written several books, including the award-winning Beyond the Flower of Life. What inspired that book, and what do you share with your readers?
that book was the result of 7 years of teaching. I actually taught the Merkaba, the Flower of Life. It's often the Merkaba meditation is often referred to as the Flower of Life training, and this particular word, flower of life, refers to a circle with 7 circles within it, kind of like if you line up a penny and then you put 6 pennies around it. That's the 7 circles of the flower of life. And so the teaching of Beyond the Flower of Life is a body of knowledge that came through as a result of my teaching this work, and it's applicable to anybody who meditates. And there are very powerful techniques within the book that create clarity for yourself and help you clear out our emotional traumas and junk. And then, in addition, it also includes specific information on programming your Merkaba, like you program software.
Please tell us more about the Merkaba. What is it, and how does it manifest?
The Merkaba is an energetic field. It is shaped like the star tetrahedron. So it's 2 tetrahedrons that are nested equally to produce the shape of a star. And most people call that shape the Merkaba. But in my mind, it's not really a Merkaba till you turn it on. And the field of the Merkaba is this energetic field that everyone has. And all we're doing is turning it on and remembering how to use it. So this field has counter-rotating fields. And it's a simple matter to learn it. And it takes only 5 minutes to do as a guided meditation. The benefit is it lets you put on the uniform of your 5th dimensional self. So you get to be 5D, whether you've earned it or not.
Absolutely. You also talk about the black helicopters. Tell us about that.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, I like to end my books with, some outrageous piece of information that I'm trying to get people to accept. And so when this book was written, and I had one of the editors who I was working with, he called me up and he said, you really had me on this whole book until I got to the black helicopters. You can't be serious. And the answer is yes. People who activate their Merkaba often attract black helicopters. And the black helicopters are part of I'll call it an American force of some sort. I'm not naming it because I really don't want to know who they are, but I can tell you that their job is to track illegal aliens. And we're not talking about green cards here. We're talking about off-planet aliens. And when they come in, they are only allowed to be in certain areas that they can be monitored. And so when you show up with your Merkaba, you throw off a similar signature that then these guys need to check out. And sometimes they hang around and it scares people. And so initially I didn't want to tell people about it because I didn't want people to be frightened. And then I had a very powerful experience that I describe in that book that made me recognize that everybody needs to know about this, because then when the black helicopter comes, they don't feel intimidated. These guys aren't going to hurt you. They're not going to cause a problem for you. They're there observing you and finding out that you're just a normal human instead of an illegal alien.
Absolutely. I've experienced that many, many times. No negativity whatsoever. I kind of wave to them and say, "Hi, guys. I know you're there." and my first conscious experience of that, I was on a very special trip to Sedona, Arizona. Interesting story. It was my former partner who unfortunately passed away in January of 1998. And she and I were on this wonderful trip out to the Arizona area, a place that she loved. She called the Grand Canyon her church on earth. She loved that area so much. And we actually arrived in Phoenix the night of the Phoenix Lights. For those who are familiar with the Phoenix Lights, we actually arrived that night to talk about synchronicity. And then the following day, we started driving north, and we went all the way to the Grand Canyon first because that was the place she wanted to be at the most, and we spent 2 days there. And then on the way back down, we came down to Sedona. And we were on a place that they call the airport
Mesa.
The airport Mesa, they call it the airport portal, where many UFOs have been sighted or UAPs have been sighted. And while we were up there, 2 black helicopters came along, checked us out for a few minutes, and then took off. So that was my first conscious experience of their presence. And I've seen them many times in the ensuing years. So
very cool.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Yeah. And I had one of my students say, oh, I think the black helicopters are really cool. And you can go ahead and put that on your website. So I did. And then they wouldn't leave her alone. And, within 2 or 3 days, she was calling me and writing me and saying, can you please take that comment down? I think I'm being harassed. And then it stopped. So.
Absolutely. Please share with our listeners about the Ascension Institute you founded and its offerings.
Ascension Institute is a year-long training program. We open it up in the spring. This next year, the opening will occur in May. And then we start in September and we go for a full year. It's a small group that we meet with twice a month. And then we have 3 retreats, 2 of which are in Sedona. And one of them can be anywhere. But right now we're kind of fancying Santa Fe for a lot of reasons. And this is an opportunity for spiritual growth and to fast track your processes. I teach in that program a lot of tools and knowledge that is not widely available in other kinds of training. So I wanted to provide an opportunity for people who are spiritually inclined and wanted to grow, to make a commitment of a year. And what's interesting to me is after the first year, those participants wanted another year with me. They felt they had grown so much, they didn't want to let go, so to speak. And what's totally, I'm just so awed and grateful. I'm now in my 8th year of this program, and I have some people in the advanced program that have been with me for 4 years in the advanced program. And, some of those are highly trained professionals, like a medical doctor. And so you look at this and you realize it's the combination of the teachings that I give, and I will say the high level camaraderie and transformation that they each do with each other. So it's pretty wonderful.
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier today, I recently had the pleasure of attending your presentation at the New Life Expo here in New York, where you shared your Bringing in the Beloved program. What inspired this teaching for you?
I was single, and I wanted to be with my beloved. And so I did a lot of research, and I used guidance to help me create a program that would allow for a person to access in the field a way to be in energetic balance to attract the one that would be ideal for them. I joke around that the first slide is today is the best day of your life because you decided to do something about the fact that you wanted to be with the beloved.
Absolutely. And what do you call your beloved's former partner?
Okay. So do you call it your ex? Well, that sounds like you're in a little bit of judgment of that person. Do you call it your former? Well, now you're being nice. But what if you refer to him or her as your practice beloved? It's kind of funny, and it's meant to be. Because if you're laughing, you get it, that you learned things and they learned things. And that it wasn't about this is a bad person or this is a, problem guy or a problem woman. Instead, it just says, oh, I was practicing. I'm now ready for you. And truly, that's one of the core principles of Bring in the Beloved is don't be afraid to have a practice, beloved, because it may take you to a place of mastery that you wouldn't have achieved without it.
Absolutely. And every relationship, if we look at them in retrospect, whether they be professional relationships, friendships that have fallen apart, or romantic relationships, give us the opportunity to learn more about ourselves and the partner that we were with and grow in the process.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. My guest is MaureenJStGermain. We'll be back with more after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, MaureenJStGermain. Maureen, so we were talking about your program, Bringing in the Beloved, which I had the pleasure of witnessing at the New Life Expo a couple of weeks ago. What's the first thing you need to do to bring in your beloved?
You need to let go of the one you had before. And I don't mean let go in letting go of good memories. I mean letting go of your longing for them. And you're telling yourself that you miss them, or that you wish things had been different. You know, even when we're in a difficult relationship and we pull the plug, you know, there's still some longing for the things that did work and the things that pulled us together. So the first thing I ask people to do is to do the guided meditation, letting go of a beloved. And this particular guided meditation does call upon all the forces of heaven to bring you back together if you're meant to come back together. Because sometimes we need to take a break in order to recognize what we have and to find appreciation for that rather than disdain for what we don't like. And then after we do that meditation and we kind of get clear, okay, now my field is available. I am ready and available. I'm not holding baggage of what didn't work or any of that stuff. You know, when someone ends a relationship that they had, let's say with an alcoholic, you know, when you ask that person, well, what kind of person would you like to be with? They'll say someone who doesn't spend the family money on drink, somebody who just comes home and doesn't beat me. They're all about what they don't want rather than what they do want. So that meditation clears that out. And that's something you do first. And then there are other things that we do after that.
Share the next step.
Okay. So then after that, we do a ceremony that we basically tell the universe, okay, I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to evolve. And I want somebody who's going to be able to help me do that. Now, that's the good news. It's also the bad news because they're going to call you on your stuff. And you're thinking to yourself, I don't want somebody who's going to, tell me that I told a white lie or that I'm stretching the truth. But then how are you going to evolve if you don't know that you're doing that? And so, this is someone who loves you and who's going to tell you in a way that you can hear it and choose to be different. And they're also watching. So, it's like big incentive. So that ceremony is very, very powerful. And you may need to have what I call a practice, beloved, to get yourself ready for the one you really want to be with. And sometimes that practice, beloved, is a blissful evolutionary step. It doesn't mean it has to be bad. And then the next thing you do is you hang out with people that you think are happily married and you pretend that you're with someone. So when you are feeling lonely and you think, oh, I'd love to go to the movies with someone, then write in a journal, I'm so happy we met. We as if you already know this person, and you keep a beloved journal where you're writing love letters to your beloved who is away temporarily. Then you don't know when they're coming back, but you've already met them in the etheric. And what that does is anchor them in. And then it's almost like putting a tractor beam on the beloved, because it creates in you an open space and opportunity and a willingness for you to grow and change, which is what we're here for. So I'd like to tell a little story about someone in one of my groups. She traveled with me to Egypt, and as the setup, she was up for a big promotion. Her boyfriend at the time and she were talking about him moving in. And so she was really on top of the world taking this holiday. And at every temple, I always ask people to make a ceremony with me and to make a clear intention on what they want. At every temple, she said, I claim love and friendship at the deepest level. So for the listeners, I want you to write this down: love and friendship at the deepest level. And even if you're already in a relationship, when you invigorate it with that concept, you will both grow and evolve in a happy way, in a joyful way. So she came home and she found out that she'd been passed over for the promotion, and her boyfriend dumped her over the phone and was already involved with somebody else. So, she went from this big high to this craziness. And within a few days, she was offered another job from another company. And it looked pretty good. And so she told her employer, I've had this offer. What do you want to do? And they made her a new offer. But it wasn't that generous. It wasn't that exciting to her. And she was kind of annoyed that she had to push them into that corner in order to get them to make that offer. And then out of the blue, the president of another company, similar business, called her and offered her a job without making her go through an interview, without asking, 20 million questions, and just said, this is it, and this is what I want to offer you, and I'd love for you to come to work for us. So she took that job. A few weeks later, at a AA meeting, she met the man that she eventually became in a relationship. So in a very short period of time, everything turned around 180 degrees, and she's in a much healthier relationship than she was, and she's in a much better job than she was. But she did have to go through the terror of losing both at the same time.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful share. Thank you. One of the things that I used to teach salespeople in the welding industry, welding supply industry, was, what does the customer really want? And the example I would give is, the customer says they need a drill bit. What do they really want? And they'd say, well, they want a drill bit. But what do they really want? They want to make a hole. So by looking beyond the immediate request, you can see so much deeper. And I say that also applies to relationships. What do we really want in relationships? And by putting out that energy of what that partner would be like, seeing that as a fait accompli, that it's already done, that really builds the relationship for you, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And it's a great example of how I teach manifestation. And I teach it with sacred geometry so I can show the mathematics that support what you just said.
Absolutely. What can be learned from having a partner that is a perfect match?
You can learn how much you are really loved, and you can learn ways to express what you need that maybe you were afraid to express before. And you have the joy of this connection that is so very powerful. I am still in awe, with the person I am with now, because he knew from the moment he saw me that, he had these big feelings towards me. And he thought maybe it was because at the time I was serving as the teacher. And one day when we were just watching a movie together, something happened. And I we were in a hotel and I went back to my room. Nothing physical happened, but my heart expanded. And the next day I asked my guides, what's going on? And they said, well, you've merged your hearts. And he had gone with some friends to camp for a couple of days. And when he came back, some people are noticing that there is an age difference between us. And we, I inched my way into it by simply saying, look, my heart is expanded and I don't know what's going on. Do you want to tell me? And I did sort of know what was going on because my guides had told me that he was my twin flame. But I wasn't going to tell him that for fear of pushing that inappropriately. And later, over time, 3 different clairvoyant psychics told him the same thing. So I didn't have to be the first person to tell him. And he knew from the beginning. I mean, he knew from the beginning that he wanted to be with me. And I was the one that was, holding back. And I am extremely happy. And I was also with a soulmate before that. And my guides told me when it was over to pull the plug. And I am still very good friends with that person. And he's an important person in my life, and I'm important to him. But I made room for something else that I didn't even know I needed. So there you go. Actually, that's not entirely true, because I did ask Spirit every once in a while, where's the guy that I manifested? Where's he at?
And you use the word twin flame. What's the difference between a twin flame and a soulmate?
In every monad, there are 144 souls. Of those 144 souls, there are 6 twin flames. So of the 144, those are your soul family. Those are people who came from the same monad, but, took different tracks and have a lot of things to bring forward. And a soulmate is often someone who is a catalyst or who sets the stage for you or pushes you in ways that you hadn't thought of going, and they create openings for you. For example, a soulmate said to me long before I ever wrote a book, and I was telling him that I was, going to be writing a book. He said, and what are you going to change in your world to make room for that? And, that's all it took. I wanted to please that person. So the soulmate can be somebody who comes along and helps you. So you're working on a project and they move into your life in a way that supports what you're doing. And then sometimes they don't stay. You usually recognize them right away, So it's pretty special.
And you've manifested this relationship. It looks like you've got the best of everything you've ever wanted, and your beloved moves on. What do you do?
You remind yourself that you still have things you need to learn from that relationship that you haven't finished, and that person had to leave in order for you to get it.
There you go.
That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, after you've done that work, you begin to realize that that person was a catalyst and that you can have another beloved. I used to joke around when I split with my former husband. There's a line at the door. I don't have to do anything. There's a line at the door. And it was a joke, but it's true for all of us if we're willing and open to receive.
Absolutely. The wisdom of Maureen St. Germain. Maureen, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can get your books, your website, and everything that you have to offer.
Okay. I'll start this time with the app. It's called Illuminate, ILLUMINATE. And it has, it's for Android and iPhone. So you can download it for free. And there are a number of free meditations. There's also in the wisdom section a lot of really powerful information, including the information on the higher self connection that gives you accuracy. A very easy protocol. And then the books are available through Inner Traditions, my publisher. They're available on Amazon, and they're also available on my website. And we have essential oil blends called Orion Series Arrow Mandalas. And these were channeled. We believe they came through Mary Magdalene, the master blender. And they clear emotional wounds. And the science behind that has shown that as much as good healers and good essential oil blends work and that prove DNA rewinding, which improves healing, at 21%, our blends improved healing at 51%. So we have scientific proof that these blends are remarkable and will transform your life. So we have a lot of different kinds of tools. We also have a training program for the Akashic Records and a certification program. And then we also feature our Akashic Records guides and match our client list so that our trained people can have access to the bigger world of people that have encountered my work.
Maureen, this interview has been a long time in coming, but it's absolutely worth the wait. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our listeners.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Victor.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.